Welcome back. In this video, we are going to add the functionality that allows us to store the image on our device, because currently it is not stored on the device. It's of course in the gallery, but the gallery could be changed by the user anytime. So he could go ahead and delete the image, and then, well, we cannot get the image anymore. And we want to have the image, of course, in our Happy Place app here in this screen, where we will then later on have all of our happy places in a list view. All right, so how do we get that? How do we fix that issue and store the image permanently? Well, we can just go ahead and take that image and then, well, just add the code to store it permanently. And therefore, we're just going to go ahead and go back down here to our companion object, and I'm going to create a new constant here, private const value, and I'm going to call this one image directory, because that's going to be the folder on the phone where I'm going to store the image. All right, and the text that I want to use here is happy places images. And then I'm going to create a new method here, which I'm gonna call save image to internal storage, because that's what it should do. And what should it store? Well, it should store in bitmap. And what shall this return? It shall return a URI, so the location of the image that we're storing. All right, so that's the idea of this method. And then what I'm going to use is the wrapper, and the wrapper should be our context wrapper. And that is going to be the application context. All right, so context wrapper, I'm going to pass the application context to it. So context wrapper, as you know, extends context. We saw that in the last video, where we also used the context wrapper before, the content resolver. Okay, so now we can use the application context this way. And then we need a file, and this one can be a variable because we're going to override it. It should be wrapper.getDirectory, and we need a context wrapper, by the way, in order to get the directory of our application, because it has a specific place on your phone in which you can store images, for example, or store files in general. And we're going to use that. So we're using this context wrapper that we created here to get the directory, and I'm gonna use our image directory here. And then you can use context and different modes here. And I'm gonna use mode private. Mode private is the mode that allows me to make this file only accessible from the calling application, or all applications that share the same user ID. So basically other apps will not be able to access this directory. So they will not be able to access our images that we store in this application. All right. And then we can go ahead and use file, pass in a file, and the name of the file. All right, so here we need to import file. So here we got the directory. Now we can use this directory to create a file. So we say, okay, the file should be at this directory, and then it should have a random unique identifier name. So here we can use this code here, uuid.random uuid.jpg. Okay, so it's going to store this image as a JPEG, and it's going to give it a random unique user ID as the name, so to speak. So this one will be random each time, and by this we make sure that each image is unique. And this is, by the way, the unique user ID, UUID. Okay, now that we have the file, we can store it. And you probably remember how we did that, or maybe remember it. We used the file output stream for this. Okay, so we can go ahead and use file output streams and stuff, because things can go wrong. We should use try here. All right, and then catch as well. So I'm gonna catch an input output exception here. And I'm just gonna say, if something goes wrong, then write the print stack trace. So this is just going to be for us for testing purposes. if something goes wrong, we will see that in our logcat. All right, so then the next thing is that we need to create a stream, which will be our output stream, because we're trying to output an image to our phone. And it's going to be of type file output stream. All right, and this file output stream needs to have a file that we need to pass in. And the file is the one that we created here. So we're just saying, okay, use this file. So the directory with this name, and then go ahead and compress our bitmap. So here, bitmap dot compress with bitmap dot compress format. And the compress format, I'm going to use JPEG here. The quality, I'm going to use 100% here. And then we need to pass in the stream. All right, so the stream that we created here. So that is part of our compress method. If you want to know more about it, here, compress method needs the compress format, the quality, and the output stream. All right, and that's exactly what we prepared here. So we prepared the output stream. We have the quality set as 100, and the bitmap that we want to use is going to be the bitmap that is passed to this function that we just created. Okay, that's not it. We still need to add some more here. For example, we should flush the stream once we're done compressing. So flush it and then close the stream. So stream.close. Now the method itself is of course still not happy, because as you can see here, it's expecting a URI to be returned. So now we of course need to return a URI.parse file.absolute_path. So what I do here is I'm saying, okay, our file has a path, right? So we created a path here, the directory and the name. So this is going to be the whole path, so to speak. So the whole directory, the whole name, how you can find the file. And we use that, and then we parse that into the format of a URI, and we'll return that. So we're just creating pretty much whatever the format is that we can later on use and that can be readable later on. So the URI format. Okay, URI is a class again, of course. It's an abstract class, as you can see here. So if you want to know more about this URI class, you can check that out. All right, so now what is left to do is we need to pretty much store this or use this method that we just created. And a good spot would be in our onActivity for result method. So it's all the way up here, onActivity result. So here we're expecting a result, and currently what we're doing is we just set the image in our IV place image. Okay, so this is the selected image, and actually we should do that here in our gallery, but also when taking an image. Okay, so here we're going to call this method, but it of course needs to have a bitmap. And guess what? We have this bitmap here, which is the selected image bitmap. Now the thing is, I cannot test it this way because we currently don't have any way of reading this image from the storage. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a new variable, and I'm gonna call this one save image to internal storage. So the same name as the method that we created. And I'm going to create a little log here. Log E, so that is nicely read. So it's going to be an error log here. We can of course use verbose or D or I here as well, but E is definitely visible. So I'm going to call this one saved image. And then the message should be a path and our saved image to internal storage. All right, so that's number one. And then we need to do it one more time. So I'm just gonna copy those lines here. I'm gonna do it one more time when the image is our thumbnail here. So when we get it from the camera. So I'm gonna put it in here, and the image of course will not be our selected image bitmap, but it will be the thumbnail. All right, and now we can go ahead and test that to see if the image is actually stored and where it is stored. All right, so let's select an image from the gallery here. And I'm just going to use this image here. There we are. So now let's see in our logcat if we get an error somewhere. So here, error. And couldn't load memtrack module. So there are a bunch of errors. Maybe it's easier if we just search specifically for saved image. All right, so there we are, saved image. And the path is going to be data user 0, the name of our directory or of our project namespace, then app happy places images, and then that is the UUID that we used. All right, now we can test this once again, but this time using the camera. So let's add the image, capture photo from camera. Let's just select any image here. And there we are. So now we have a new unique image ID that was used. So these two images, they are stored now. And when we later on want to read them, we will be able to read them. Okay, so that is one of the first steps that we have here in terms of storing the images and then also reusing them and displaying them. But of course, there's still a lot to do in the next few videos. Okay, so I'd say see you in the next one.